his stall not in as good shape as he remembered, but he is able to, as the kids say, flip the script by updating the menu, giving the stall a more hipper kind of social media savvy look to it, and he's able to like save the fortunes of it. And one of the rewards of doing better is that he moves into real prime real estate at the night market.
But he's yearning to get a college degree. Why is it that he thinks a college degree will expand the stall at the night market? I was trying to work that one out, and I was never entirely clear.
Well, being really ambitious, if he had a degree, he could probably have an easier time getting investors to try to expand the business. And
So what he wants is a real restaurant then.
eventually,
Okay, not so it was like he had a
Yeah.
food truck, but now he wants to have a
Yeah.
legitimate.
But that's like a dream that he has. He's so busy with the day-to-day that he's not able to really put those steps into practical place.
So who devised the menu at the night market stall?
Oh, well, he did, but they are also based on old recipes handed down from his grandfather that Frankie the cat knows. Frankie the cat has been working at the Chen family stand since even before Jing An was born.
Okay, and it's not just Frankie the cat, but there's
Yeah.
one other person.
Oh yeah. Yes, there is an Aboriginal worker there named Dwayne.
Is that a real name for an Aboriginal? Come on.
It is the name that he adopted because he loved The Rock so much.
Of course.
And The Rock is near
All right,
Dwayne
so
Johnson,
Dwayne
so.
and
Yeah.
Frank.
So he has
the
that
cat.
tie because The Rock is of Pacific Islander descent. So
He's a big
really
guy.
felt it. Yeah, he's not a little guy.
So you
Yeah.
need some muscle to run a restaurant,
Yeah.
don't you? I mean, you do,
Yeah,
because there's
you
a
do.
lot of heavy lifting involved and so forth.
Sure. And
Okay.
sometimes unruly kind of people, unsavory types do come in. Not a whole lot, but it happens sometimes.
So how big a deal is, I mean, I've traveled in Asia
Mhm.
and Egypt and places a
Mhm.
lot, but for those who haven't, how big a deal is a night market compared to a day market?
Oh, it's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. Oh my gosh. It's like, Taipei during the daytime is not a real attractive kind of city. The architecture leaves much to be desired. Block to block, it's as if it was developed without a plan because it wasn't. But at nighttime, when you just have lights out, and the hardworking Taiwanese people come out, nobody feels like cooking. It's like too hot. It's like too much trouble. So you just eat at a night market, and you can finally like relax. After your 12, 14-hour day. Most bosses will go through this routine. Like early in the afternoon, they'll hand out menus and be like, "Hey, let's order dinner." Like in other words, you're staying and working tonight. But some will not. They'll just make you work until you drop at your desk. But then you can meet up with your friends at the night market.
So it's communal dining.
It's definitely communal, yeah.
One thing I learned in Myanmar, which I hadn't thought about being a spoiled Western elite, is that you can't actually go to the grocery store and come home with a large supply of food because you don't have refrigeration. You don't have, if you do have any,
Yeah.
it's going to be really small.
Yeah.
So basically every day
Yeah.
is you get stuff together and you either cook it out on the street because everybody's sitting outside, or you go to the night market. But the whole concept of going to the Safeway and taking it home to the kitchen and meal planning really doesn't work, does
No,
it?
It doesn't. And you want the freshest ingredients because if you do have to stick it in the fridge,
If you
your
have a
greens aren't
fridge.
going. Yeah, if you have a fridge, the greens aren't going to be as good. So actually, a lot of extended families in Taiwan work with the grandparents going to the day market early on in the morning,
Yeah.
and then like cooking all day for their sons and daughters.
So
and
what happens
grandkids.
at the day market? What's sold at the day market if it's not food?
Well, like
If
a
there
lot
is
of the raw
some food.
ingredients, like the greens.
So it's like a
the
farmer's
plants.
market.
Kind of like a farmer's market, yeah.
And the night market is more prepared food
Yes,
then?
yes.
Ah, now I've got it.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, all right. Are there, are there food trucks, or are the stalls at the night market the Taiwanese equivalent of the Los Angeles and Phoenix food truck?
You know, I haven't really seen food trucks. I've seen people pushing like carts.
Okay.
Like some of these carts they could have like, Tahoe, which is like a soft tofu kind of pudding that they add like sugarcane sweetener to it. I salivated as I thought about that. Or it could be someone pushing a cart filled with coals at the bottom and all these like yams or sweet potatoes piled on.
Okay.
And you can get a fresh, warm yam or sweet potato like right on the street. That's great.
So I'm trying to remember, but when we first met, you're a journalist by background,
I still
right?
am.
You
Yeah,
still are,
still
okay. And you wrote 3 books set in New York's
I
Chinatown.
did.
And now you switched to Taiwan. Is that your own background?
Yeah.
You are
well,
Taiwanese?
Yeah, my dad is from Taiwan. He's like his family is a long time Taiwanese family. Like they left China when the Ming Dynasty collapsed in the 1600s. My mother's
really
family,
long time.
my mother's family on the other hand, are known as the mainlanders who left China after the Civil War.
Right.
Yeah.
Along with, one thinks, some of the treasures from the Forbidden Palace, which, I know it's an ongoing, this has been a really scary time for Taiwan, hasn't
It
it?
has been. But, behind the scenes, Xi Jinping had gotten in touch with Biden to say, this is not going to be a war. We're not ready for war. We're just like, emphasizing that we have sovereignty over the island. It was reported today.
Well, of course, he's hoping for, quote, peaceful reunification, which
On his terms.
which I don't think is really going to happen. I mean, it won't be peaceful. I'm not saying that reunification won't. But, I had a really interesting experience in Vietnam. I'm a Vietnam War widow, so I did not wish to go to Vietnam. But eventually, my younger kids and my husband really wanted to and go down the Mekong, do the whole thing. So I agreed. We flew to Hong Kong, and then we took Dragonair, to... but while we were in Hanoi, we went to the military museum. And the Vietnam War was a real scar in this country, and a personal scar for me.
Yes.
Greatly to my amazement, in the Hanoi Military War Museum. It's a great big museum, and there's like this much space for what they call the American War. And the entire rest of the museum is all about China. It's all 1,000 years of war with China. And I mean, the Vietnamese just hardly even blink at the war that was so terrible here, because it didn't really matter to them in terms of the longer struggle that they have had, continuing struggle that they have had against China. And they had like a bedside book in the hotel. We were in the Hanoi, whatever it is, where Jane Fonda, remember, was down in the garden, all of it, which is a gorgeous hotel, I might add. But it was a history of Vietnam's relations with China.
Yes.
And yet somehow they've managed to hold off, being conquered by China, which has had aspirations in Asia for a really long time.
Yeah,
And of course,
centuries
the
and
Japanese.
centuries of struggle.
Well, and then
Yeah.
we all know about. Well, if you're an American anyway, you realize that the Japanese also had major aspirations, and that eventually did not go well. So I'm hoping that Taiwan will muddle on like Vietnam, and this won't happen to them.
Okay, so this counts as wood to knock on.
Well, yeah, but that you're right that there are certainly different Taiwanese, and some are a lot more recent, having left China.
Yeah.
And what was it, 47, something like that?
49. But
49.
People did leave before the end of the Chinese Civil War.
Right.
Yeah, and Taiwan was a Japanese colony from 1895 to 1945.
There was a lot of issue. There was a
yeah.
Japanese colony,
Yeah.
at one point or another.
Yeah.
Korea still hasn't knit itself back together. So, the world keeps changing all the time. There's a slug of World War II novels out at the moment. I mean, a zillion, most of them women's stories because switching from the military. And of course, Germany, is the bad guy all the way through. And yet, the paper today, Germany is the thing holding the EU together, and all the rest of it. And I think, wow, in my lifetime, because I was born in 1940, we've had this pivot, from the evil German to the good German, and so it's hard to keep up, isn't it, with revolving.
It's the biggest European economy, so they
It
kind
is.
of are the keystone.
Yeah, right. So, if you live a long life, you realize that, these things are constantly turning. So, well, I'm hoping for good things for Taiwan.
Definitely good things will happen.
Right. So, final question before I ask the audience. Are you working on a new mystery or are you doing something else?
I'm always working on another night market book, unless Jingnan dies or I die.
Oh no.
Oh, those are two depressing outcomes.
Well, a fictional character,
I understand.
There does have to come an end at some point. Not yet, not for a long time.
Oh, good. Did any of you have questions that you would like to ask?
Anything.
Hi.
Hey.
Okay, so do you have a ritual to kind of transport yourself back into Taiwan when you're like getting into writing descriptions and setting up sights and sounds and smells?
Well, I do try to get to Taiwan like every year or two. I mean, I haven't since the pandemic.
Yeah.
But, I approach it as a journalist. I go there, I source materials, I talk to a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people in organized crime. In Taiwan, it's not illegal to be a member of an organized criminal group. You just have to register as one. And then
Are they
everything's
different
okay.
than the triads?
They are different in the sense that there's like two different kinds. There's like, one that's like, national, like covers all of Taiwan, but there are also like smaller groups that operate just like, could be turf as small as like a couple of blocks or like just a section of the city. But somehow these groups all work together. They don't like encroach usually on each other's turf. If there's any fights, they're at the karaoke bar where all big fights happen. That's true. That's true. You have these like insecure men like singing, and then like someone's laughing, and then it's it's on.
There's that little slight smile that
Right?
the Chinese do, and it all blows
sure.
up.
It's all
Oh,
over after
love
that.
it. Right. Anybody else?
Well, I'm as I think as an Asian American writer, especially, I think there's been more of a more celebration and like excitement about like new voices. And I'm sure you've been writing a long time, but like for example, like Celestine is like I love her books, and like, that's been really exciting to see more of that. Or like Kevin Kwan with like Crazy Rich Asians.
Or Grace Lee, who has a fabulous book called Portrait of a Thief, which is here in the store. She is a Chinese student at Stanford and has written this wonderful book about a group of students who decide to steal Chinese art from museums, American museums that have misappropriated them.
Oh, wow.
And it's really a great book.
Yeah. The
Something
cover
that-
looks like Chow Yun Fat a little bit
Yeah.
in shades.
But you're right. Ed was a bit in advance of, but
yeah,
now there's.
I'm wondering how have you experienced more recognition with your work, or do you feel like there's more?
I don't know. I made the decision this year that I would not read any reviews. Well, the thing is that, my wife is an actress. For a long time, she has not read reviews of like the plays and shows she's been in because it can only affect your performance, and just the nature of the review. It compares you with other people. These may not be, it could set up conflicts that you didn't really think exist in real life. And it doesn't really help you. I mean, and the reviews are more for like the public. They're not really for you as the artist. And so like, I understand that, that this book was well received in like the LA Times and the New York Times, but I have not read them yet. My publisher has.
Yeah,
and it's
for
up to
sure.
them to See, that's the marketing kind of thing.
Yeah,
You know, I think the writing thing is like the beautiful, the art kind of thing, you know, the
Yeah.
doing your best kind of thing. And like the actual publication of the book is like a business, right? It's all marketing, it's a product that gets, you know,
But you get
put
to
on a
come
shelf
and
and
talk to
stuff.
me. Come
Yeah,
on.
I know.
It's not all bad.
This is the part of this is the beautiful part.
Well,
This,
I love the, sometimes they have early editions of books before they become.
That's what this is. It's
yeah,
an
these are
advanced
the
reading
arts,
copy.
advanced copies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like I have one from Where the Crawdads Sing that was sent out at the Republic in like early summer 2018.
Right.
Wow.
I have like an early Where the Crawdads Sing
Mhm.
book, and it's just weird because there's like nothing on it.
Yeah.
It's just
There
like,
wasn't.
title.
I had to actually argue with the publisher to get her here.
Wow.
They didn't anticipate. I did a wonderful event with Dee, and there were 3 people that came.
Oh,
And
About
we
that
it's okay.
we sold 100 books, but yeah. Yeah,
Well,
and
you never know.
afterwards,
it's just
I know, afterward people said to me, why didn't you order 10,000? And I said, well,
because
you know, because you can't really tell. Sometimes
Yeah.
sometimes you can tell ahead of time by the amount of money that the publisher throws at a book, because the more they paid for it, the more they're going to pay to promote it. But sometimes a book like Where the Crawdads Sing is the sleeper.
yeah,
It publishes and it takes a little while before people
Yeah.
really really see it, and it takes
Yeah.
off, and it sort of surprises even me. So I was good enough to see it was good enough to order 100 books and make it a First Mystery Club book of the month, but I wasn't quite good enough to risk ordering thousands of copies, you know. She was a very interesting person to sit and talk to, and you'd be surprised how many first novels we've done where almost nobody shows up. Don Winslow was Don and me and one other person. Lee Child,
Amazing.
you know,
Yeah.
the first Reacher and so forth.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to be 33 years old in October.
Wow.
So we've been through entire careers.
Wow.
yeah.
Michael Connolly did his first ever event here, and he says he'll do his last.
Wow.
You know, it,
It's awesome.
Mhm.
Well, I feel like sorry, like, dominating
It's okay.
the question,
it's fine.
but I feel like especially with Asian like just, I don't know, more ethnic diversity in the writing, and like there's more focus on like trying to get those stories out, like.
It's not just Asian. We
Yeah,
did
that's
we
what-
did
yeah,
a
like
really
Black
great
stories
event
are really nice.
Monday night with a Navajo author, from your publisher, called Shutter. And, you know, part of that conversation, I said to her, and it's true, that Tony Hillerman wouldn't get published today writing his Navajo mysteries, because all of a sudden, it wasn't that the mystery form was not one that really appealed to indigenous writers. In fact, the mystery is basically an American and a British literary form. But now it's become global. And now we find, you know, Japanese authors, authors from all over Sri Lanka, whatever. But it wasn't originally. So there were people who were not Navajo or not Ute or not, you know, Arapaho, who wrote mysteries about those people, but there were no native voices writing those
right.
mysteries. And now that's changing. There are a lot of people who have written mysteries about Asian countries, or books that Ethan Hamilton, a Canadian author, writes an absolutely brilliant series about a Chinese. She lives in Toronto, and her family's in Hong Kong, and she's an asset recovery specialist. God, they're great books. She's gay, she's Chinese, she's, you know, whatever. And he's written like 15 or 18 books about Ava Lee, and I love them. But he's not Chinese, you know. And there's increasingly a desire in publishing to have authentic voices,
Right.
and I think it's great. But there were a number of reasons that there weren't.
Yeah.
One of which was this form just didn't work for people in other cultures. But now it's become a kind of universal, you know, universal culture.
Universal crime culture. This may not be the next, you know, Crawdads Sing, but
No, I mean-
but
Well,
there
it
may
can't
be
be, 'cause
crawdads
it's
at the
not-
night market.
It can't be, because it's not a first novel. So there, right? Bet you didn't know all
But
that.
don't you feel like, obviously your experience allows you to write then with authority and like confidence in the details?
Why, I always have.
Sure.
Well,
Well,
it's different
like the
because-
smile, like I just pointed that out, you know. You'd have to know that that was a danger sign in Taiwan to even say that in a book. Yeah. Either you have a
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Okay, quick question. Oh no, what's this?
I'm gonna pick your brain on this one. They say music shapes the way we, our growth and our reactions to things in life, right?
Sure.
Supposedly. Jing
Jing Nan?
Nan?
Yeah.
Her favorite band was Joy Division?
No, his.
Oh, his favorite band. This is how much
I'm
I
sure
read.
you're a dedicated reader.
Yeah, I'm a dedicated reader.
Yeah.
I noticed that favorite band was Joy Division.
Mhm.
I was just wondering, when it comes to Taiwan, what was their exposure to like music, like in those subgenres?
You know?
You know, during that time, especially Joy Division in the 1970s and late 70s, early 80s, and then how much of that is in that character?
Everything made it to Taiwan, like contemporarily. It's like one of the centers of Asia that a lot of people come through. And it's you have the diaspora from like they're in the UK and like in the US, and they all come through. When I was there in the 80s, like they had the Springsteen albums like at the same time as the US. They may be pirated, but they were there.
They were there.
And actually, are you a fan of Primal Scream?
Yeah.
Bobby Gillis music?
Yeah.
Okay, so there was this one album called Beautiful Future, right? It was issued in the UK and I think Canada, but like for some reason they couldn't get a US record deal. But I found it in Taiwan, like from the Japanese label. So in order for me to get that album, I had to get it in Taiwan.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Hong Kong was notorious for, all of its pirating music stuff. Even I knew that.
Why, pirating?
No.
It was officially licensed. It just wasn't, it was a variety,
Well, this has really been a lot of fun, Ed. And since we give away a book, an advanced reading copy,
Ooh.
at all of our events to the audience, I'm going to award this to you because you have raised that interesting question. This is a book set in Sri Lanka by a woman who lives in Sri Lanka, and I
Yes.
just talked to her before I came here, so you can watch it on our
you.
website.
Ooh, look, uncorrected proof.
I can see she lusted for it,
There
right?
could be typos in there,
Right.
but you will treasure them.
Indeed. And she's so right, but it's wonderful to have, it's really wonderful to have, native voices, so to speak. And, well, not so to speak, to have native voices. I think it's absolutely great that we're seeing so many of them. Ed,
very
thank you
cool.
for coming back. It's
Barbara, thank you
wonderful
for
to
having
see
me
you.
again.
It's
Yeah.
always a pleasure. Thank you all for
Oh,
coming
thank
tonight.
you. Very
And
cool.
if you'd like Ed to sign a book for you, I'm sure he'd be delighted to.
Here I
They
am.
probably work up in the front. So
Yes.
I'll say good night.
Okay. We'll see you guys.
Grab that. Seriously, it was very nice of you all to come on a sort of hot August night. We have an enormous streaming audience, although I'm somewhat skeptical that the streaming actually worked this evening. I hope so. But we have thousands. Hmm? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. They're archived too,
We've
right?
done 900 since COVID started,
Oh,
and
my
our
gosh.
biggest audience so far was 102,000, but we've had some in the 50s and.
Who was that
Uh-huh.
for?
Yeah. Who was it for?
Curious.
Was it Gillian Flynn?
Really? Wow.
Gillian and Dennis Lehane. We did
Oh,
one
okay.
together, and that was 60-some thousand, I think. Diana
Wow.
Gabaldon, who is our author, she gets staggering numbers. I'm trying to remember who it was that had that
Wow.
huge audience, because it was sort of a
I mean,
surprise.
that's from all
But-
over the world,
But
right?
yeah, it is. We have a really big international customer. We ship internationally every day.
When is your anniversary? When's the story?
October 3rd, and John Sanford will be here too. It's his book launch, but it'll be
Wow.
part of the party. Yeah, and we have
Awesome.
Nelson DeMille coming, and Scott Giroux, and
Heavy hitters.
the Reachers, and we have 2 Cussler books this fall, and we have Michael. So and Janet Ivanovich, so we have a fairly big fall
Wow.
coming up.
Wow.
Yep, but it's always a pleasure. Jacob, wherever you are, you have your phone back. Right. All right, I'll get out of the way and say thank you again for coming out
Cool.
this evening. Do come back, because we do this all the time, or you can watch them on our website when the technology is actually working.
How late are you open here?
On event nights till they're over.
Okay.
Most of the time till 6 or 7. I
Okay.
think we're going to go back to 7. We used to close at 7 and we moved it back to 6 during COVID. But now that people are out again, we'll probably stay open until 7. Let me see if I can find Jacob and give him his phone. If he went home, he's left his phone here. Yeah. Did Jacob leave? Is this your phone or his? What? Poor kid, I took it away from him.
Yeah, I didn't even know I didn't have a recording device on mine.
Oh, I don't even know how I can't get into his phone, so I can't stop the recording. Crap.
Kind of apple. I just learned how to do this.
Okay, we'll see if you can do it.
Yeah. Well,
You know, I can't eat that because it's often fermented with sea salt.
Oh.
Extra help.
Can I grab a Sharpie?
sure.
Favorite restaurant or stall
Thanks so
you
much.
like to go to when you're back in Taiwan?
I try to go
No, but I have.
I try to go to different places. I try to go to places like I've never been to before. You know?
T-E-R-O-R. Yeah, okay. And then, so places you never been,
there you are.
plus some old
I
favorites?
gave him your phone. I was afraid you'd gone home without
Oh.
it.
So you like to go to new places, some old favorites?
I always try to get an old friend.
Hello. We hope you're enjoying our programs and podcasts with authors. We'd like to expand them, and your help would be appreciated. Please make a donation at poisonedpenfoundation.org. 100% of the proceeds will go to help connect authors with readers in this difficult time. Thank you.